Hi, everybody. I'm Skip Elsheimer, and welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. We are pre-recorded because I am not here. I'm somewhere else. And so I'd still like to bring you as many films as I can. Some of you might have noticed that I turned off the neon, the AV Geeks neon, which, oh boy, the camera's so weird here, because it was getting a glare. And I don't know if you noticed that there was this like backwards AV Geeks over my face. I just noticed that when after I recorded some. So, anyways, you can see it actually a little bit clearer here. It says AV Geeks. If I turn it on, it blooms and you can't really see it with the webcam. But today we are watching films about firemen and fire. And this first one is kind of interesting. It's a silent film, and it came from a collector, Craig Baldwin, who's based in San Francisco, and we scanned it for him. And it is a firehouse contest. So this is amateur footage of the different firehouses competing, doing different tasks. It's pretty great. Enjoy. The next film that we're about to watch is Fire in Your Hospital. I actually have a couple of films that deal with fire, how to deal with fire in hospitals, because it's a big deal. You have all this oxygen, you have like tanks of oxygen, you have these chemicals, and then you have all these people that are infirmed. How do you get them out if there's a fire? I mean, if you ring a fire bell, like, how do you evacuate everybody, especially people who are bedridden? So this film is a pretty fascinating look at that. Enjoy.
The hospital in each community is known as a haven of hope. It is a place where the sick may come with confidence and faith. Faith in those who will treat them, cure them, care for them, and protect them. They entrust themselves and their faith to the doctors and surgeons, to the nurses and orderlies, the technicians in the laboratory and in the X-ray room, the engineers and the maintenance men, the housekeeper and service personnel, the superintendent, and those who comprise the administrative staff. All are important members of the hospital team. They are responsible for and to the faith entrusted in them. And yet, in spite of all they may strive to do, in spite of all and everyone's good intentions, this can happen. Why? Well, it happened because no building is ever completely safe from fire. That is especially true of a hospital. A hospital combines within its walls fire hazards which are related to a great variety of occupations. The fire hazards of a factory. The hospital operates heating and power plants, workshops, and many types of machinery.
Wherever there's machinery, this might happen.
The fire hazards of a restaurant. Hospital kitchens are often larger and busier than many restaurant kitchens.
Watch out for hot fats and cooking wastes, or this might happen.
The fire hazards of a chemical laboratory. Hospital laboratories are frequently as large as you will find in many industries.
Many liquids we use in the laboratory give off highly flammable fumes. Fumes like these stream downwards and spread all over. Better watch out.
The fire hazards of commercial laundries. Hospitals have laundries too. Big and busy laundries. And a hospital might be compared, yes, to an arsenal.
Even as little as the daily supply of oxygen, nitrous oxides, cyclopropane, and ether represents the explosive power of a good-sized bomb.
And last but not least, a hospital houses a great number of patients, visited by numbers of relatives and friends, many with dangerous habits.
He shouldn't have done that. Guess nothing happened this time.
So this, then, is your hospital. Within its walls, so many fire hazards some very basic precautions must be taken. Should a fire occur in any part of the hospital, if left to its own devices, it will spread very rapidly. To prevent it from spreading horizontally, self-closing fire and cutoff doors are installed to act as fire and smoke barriers. Therefore, no matter what part you play on the hospital team, see that doors like this one are never obstructed. See to it that these doors can do the job they're designed to do. Fires always tend to spread upwards, just like the flame consuming this match. That's why open stairways, elevator shafts, open laundry chutes, and dumbwaiters always act as flues. Always try to pull a fire, or gases and fumes, to the upper floors, sometimes within seconds. For this reason, a minor hospital fire, if there is such a thing, often turns into a catastrophe which shocks the world. To stop fire from spreading, all staircases, elevator shafts, and other vertical openings are enclosed in fire-resistant materials. So again, let's remind ourselves. When you see a door to a stairwell open, close it. Close it at once. Fire now cannot spread upwards through this staircase. Whatever the reason, do not keep elevator doors open. And dumbwaiters. Hey, remember that match? How it burned upwards? That's right. Exit doors should never be obstructed, never locked. Don't laugh. It has happened. Check the door. Make sure it's not locked. Thanks anyway, Doc. Exit signs are always illuminated, or better, should be. And you may have automatic sprinklers in your hospital. Automatic sprinklers are very efficient firefighters. They will give the alarm and at the same time extinguish the fire. Make sure the sprinkler valve is never turned off. If a valve is turned off, this shaft is screwed inwards, and the valve would appear to you like this. You don't see the shaft. Should any one of you ever discover a turned-off sprinkler system, report it at once. This is such a threat to your hospital that no time must be lost. There are also, or should be, other firefighting devices in your hospital. Of course, hand fire extinguishers are familiar objects. But how many of you, or how few, know exactly where they are? Find out. And then memorize the floor plan of your hospital. And X marks the spots where hand extinguishers are located. Once you know where to find the fire extinguishers in a hurry, and in a hurry you'll be when you need them, know how to operate them. Read the instructions. Study them at once. And not when you have to use the extinguisher. It'll be too late then. This, then, is your hospital. Being a hospital, it is vulnerable to fire in many ways. But it also has many defenses against fire. To make these defenses do the best possible job, something else is needed. What is that something else? Yes, a fire safety program. A fire safety program tries to achieve three major goals. Good housekeeping, good maintenance, good discipline, which all add up to saving lives. The need for good housekeeping is urgent and ever present. Good housekeeping means many things. It means, for instance, that you must get rid of any accumulation of rubbish or debris. It means oily rags, which give off flammable fumes, must be kept in metal containers. And even there, they should not be allowed to accumulate. It means care and precaution whenever you handle flammable liquids. Keep them in approved self-closing cans. Paints. Always store them in metal cabinets. Good housekeeping means careful checking whenever you install partitions or make other structural changes. Check with your supplier and be sure that only flame-resistant materials are used. Many a wallboard you consider flame-resistant is apt to fool you. And there are other hazards, hundreds of them, all over the hospital, in all departments. It is up to you to find them and to eliminate them. Good maintenance is the second chapter of your fire safety program. Good maintenance sees to it that nowhere in your hospital will you ever find improperly supported wires. Such wires will fray easily. Even electrical fuses, when used incorrectly, can be dangerous. When it is specified on a fuse box that 15 ampere fuses should be used, and you insert this fuse, a 30 ampere fuse, the electrical circuit supposedly protected by this fuse can easily be overloaded. And soon, there might be a fire. Good maintenance requires regular and thorough inspection of boilers, power plants, operating rooms, elevator machinery, and the many other installations you have in a hospital. This, then, leads us to the third chapter, good discipline. Good discipline concerns itself with people only, with you who work in the hospital, with the patients who are under your care, and their visitors. Good discipline also is deeply concerned with a certain habit. Careless smoking causes most fires. So be sure that these signs are posted prominently. Be sure that they are seen, read, and understood. No smoking. Smoking is prohibited. Smoking is always forbidden for very good reasons. Not all, however, as obvious as this one. An ounce of prevention. That is the best idea, isn't it? However, because smoking is popular and so helpful, it is permitted in some parts of the hospital. This ashtray is no good, too shallow. Have suitable ashtrays, deep ashtrays, of which there are many types. And speaking of ashtrays, remember?
Guess nothing happened this time.
Are you sure? It is much later now, and our patient is fast asleep. When fire is discovered, there are definite and specific actions which must follow immediately. First, if the patient is within immediate danger of smoke or flame, he or she must be moved to a safer area. Second, once the patient is out, close the door. This is very important. Third, notify the switchboard operator at once in as calm a voice as possible so as not to alarm any patients who may overhear. Report the exact location and the extent of the fire. Fourth, attempt to put out the fire with hand extinguishers. Meanwhile, the switchboard operator immediately notifies the fire department. She then calls the nurses and interns' quarters, the hospital superintendent, the chief engineer, and others. Usually a code signal spread over the public address system or by bells will alert these and all others without alarming the patients. The duty fire brigade, composed of trained hospital personnel, arrives to fight the fire until the city fire department can take charge. The hospital superintendent also hurries to the scene to evaluate the situation and at once establishes communications with the rest of the hospital through the switchboard. While the fire is being fought locally, every department in the hospital responds with a condition of readiness in case the fire gets out of control. The engineering department stands ready to isolate the threatened area by cutting off ventilation, gas, refrigeration, or oxygen. All nurses report on the double to their duty stations to await instructions for removal of patients if the danger continues. The linen room personnel stand by to distribute blankets and bathrobes. Clinical personnel stand by to administer emergency first aid. Orderlies and janitors close all windows, doors, and dumbwaiters in threatened floor areas. See that cutoff doors are closed, that exit doors are not blocked. While all these precautions are being taken, other personnel, not so engaged, have assembled in an employee pool, prepared for any special duty which may be assigned by the superintendent or whoever is in charge. Constant communication with the firefighting detail and all departments of the hospital is maintained. Should the telephone service be interrupted, messengers from the employee pool maintain the vital lines of communication. Well, an extremely dangerous incident has been brought to a conclusion, to a happy conclusion. It is the result of careful planning and foresight. In short, it is the result of an efficient fire safety program. In developing such a fire safety program, all departments should be consulted and individual responsibilities clearly assigned. Representatives of your local fire department and literature from agencies who have made fire protection their business will provide you with expert guidance and advice. The organization and continuous training of hospital fire brigades, one for each shift, is a vital step in fire control. Here also, consultation with a specialist is indicated. And the specialist in this case is the professional fireman, an expert who is eager to help and well-trained to fight fire. To assist the city firemen to become familiar with the building and grounds layout, they should be invited to visit the hospital and tour its premises. Such familiarity will save priceless minutes in an emergency. The final responsibility, that of coordinating the fire safety program, should be vested with one individual, to be called the hospital fire marshal. In many hospitals, this assignment is rotated among the various departments in order that all may share the common responsibility. The final objective of any fire safety program, of course, is to save lives. If the fire, which started this way, had gotten out of control, the fire marshal would have been forced to give the order for evacuation. It might have been a limited evacuation or a total evacuation. Be prepared for either. The type of evacuation will depend upon the location of the fire and its progress. First, all patients in immediate danger are moved to a place of temporary safety, toward stairways or fire escapes. Patients in other parts of the floor, as well as patients in floors above, are prepared for similar evacuation. Then, should it be necessary, the patients can safely be taken downstairs and let out of the hospital. In addition to knowing where to evacuate patients, every employee must know how to evacuate them. Babies require the greatest care. They should be individually wrapped in blankets to protect them from smoke or exposure. A reserve of oxygen must go along when incubator babies are being evacuated. Of course, nurses must stay with these little charges all the time. Other patients are evacuated according to their physical condition. Ambulatory patients. After making certain that all are accounted for, a responsible person leads them to safety according to the prepared evacuation plan. Always remember, keep calm. Keep them calm. And don't count on using any elevator which is close to the fire. Then there are the helpless patients. Quietly and assuredly, so as not to create panic, move them away from the fire. If wheelchairs or stretchers are not available in sufficient number, these patients, securely wrapped in their bedding, may be placed on the floor and dragged out of danger. There's also an ingenious method called nurse's carry, by which one nurse, unaided, can carry a heavy patient to safety. Helpless patients may be transferred to litters for evacuation downstairs. Should there not be enough litters, you would have to carry them. Additional help from the employee pool may be needed then. Well, this then is the story of fire prevention in hospitals. But it also is your story, because it is your enthusiasm, your team spirit, your alertness, supported by a fire safety program conceived by you and tailored to the specific needs of your hospital, which will bring fire safety to you and to those who have faith in you.
This next film is for farmers. It would be shown at the Agricultural Extension Office, at state fairs, etc., as a way to educate farmers on what to do if there's a fire on their farm. It's beautiful color, pretty amazing film, and it thinks about okay, your farm's on fire. What's the next step? How can you minimize the losses that could harm livestock and harm basically your bottom line. Enjoy.
And no one will be allowed to smoke in the barn or the oil house. All of us on the learn how to call the fire department so we don't have to fumble through the phone book. The form also asks whether the fire department has a map of our buildings, special hazards, and water supply listed on a card. If we inspect our farms with an underwriter's form, we can prevent a lot of potential fires. Many fires are prevented for us every day in many unseen ways, prevented by the UL label. A farmer has a lot of... That goes for roofing and building materials, as well as fire. Best assurance we have that the equipment we use won't start a fire. Farming looks easy to folks who've never tried it. Of course, with a tractor, a baler, and plenty of power, you never have to do much manual work yourself. There are times when farming looks too easy, especially when you're getting your hay in. To some folks, it looks as if all you have to do is go out and cut it. But in spite of all the help a farmer gets from his machinery, it took me 3 weeks to get my hay in last summer. You can blame that on the weather. Every time I got the tractor out, a bad summer storm would come up. Whenever we get a storm like this, I can't help thinking farming is still pretty much a battle with the elements. In spite of all our modern progress, we still have to run when we get a bad rainstorm. I've been farming for 30 years. Sometimes I think I've got everything pretty much under control. But then old Mother Nature comes along and shows me who's the boss. Even with all the modern ideas and tools a farmer has these days, he still has to battle a lot of persistent enemies. For instance, there's weather, which is usually too hot or too cold, too wet or too dry. Insects. Pests, misfortune, and fire. Most of these hazards are seasonal. Lucky for us, we have to fight insects only a part of the year. But we gotta be prepared for fire every day and night the whole year through. Keeping the fire department number in plain sight is one way of being prepared. Farmer's got to be better prepared because fire hits him harder than anyone else. And do you know why? Too many of our farms have been a long way from the fire department. By the time firemen got there, it was usually too late for anything but regrets. Too many farm buildings were built mighty poor. We don't know what a building code is in farm areas. We haven't had enough water to fight fires and put them out. We've had more than our share of hazards. For instance, hay that heats up all by itself and has to be guarded against. Lightning that requires special precautions. In the past few years, we've done a mighty good job of making our farms more secure from fire. Why, I've even built a fire pond on my place just to make sure there'd be plenty of water on hand in case a fire ever breaks out. Took my neighbor's bulldozer only a couple of days to scoop out the pond. Someday it might save my barn. I hear farmers all over the country are building ponds like mine, or making ponds by damming a brook. It's the sensible thing to do before you have your fire. Another improvement has been in our roads. Fire trucks can get to the farms faster. Most of us have telephones now. We can call the firemen in a hurry if the neighbors will get off the line. We've got a lot more fire departments in rural areas. These fire departments are using faster, better equipped trucks. Spray nozzles that cool off a fire faster. Wet water chemicals that help water get to the seat of a fire quicker. Even two-way radio is helping cut our farm fire losses. Tank trucks can carry water to a fire, but don't put off building your farm pond because of them. You'll need all the water you can get when you have a fire. Yep, we've come a long way, but we got a long way to go. Our hazards have been keeping right in step with our progress. For instance, I reckon we use 10 times the gasoline and oils that we used 20 years ago. A new fuel, liquefied petroleum gas, is used on thousands of farms. Nearly all our machines have some kind of fire hazard. We're using heat and power in so many ways, like this crop dryer, for instance. Nearly all farms now have electricity. Unless you use it carefully, it can be dangerous. Fires caused by lightning has increased. More things to attract it, maybe. Yes, there are still a lot of hazards in farming, more than some folks realize. With all the hard work, savings, and investments that we have put into our farms and our cattle, well, we need a lot of something to take some of the uncertainty out of farming. A single disaster, say a bad fire, could wipe out our savings and set us back 20 years. The one thing that will protect us from the effects of disaster is insurance. That's why my local insurance agent is a welcome visitor at my farm. The protection he brings is more than a policy. It's a guarantee that we'll survive and prosper no matter what happens. His service includes some mighty good engineering advice, such as the Farm Fire Safety Inspection Form from the National Board of Fire Underwriters. This form was a new one on me. There are so many places where a fire could start on a farm that I need some help to find them. This form has helped me locate just about everything that might cause a fire. But most important, it shows you how to do the job yourself. You always learn something better by doing it firsthand. You notice, for instance, whether your lightning rod cables are grounded securely in moist earth. You get to checking the size of your fuses, wiring around. The form reminds you that you've got to use a safe can if you're carrying any gasoline about the farm, and that you'd better keep your oils in a special house away from other buildings. There's hardly a farm that couldn't stand a little more inspection and a little more looking for the UL label. And there isn't a farm anywhere that couldn't stand having a good fire department in the neighborhood. You'll always feel more secure if you can get help somewhere. You need good firemen, proud enough of their equipment to show it off once in a while. And ready for instant action. I learned how important a good fire department can be the day some wet hay started smoldering in the barn. I ran to call the fire department. I gave the operator my fire block number. The fire block number told the fire department exactly where my farm was. In a matter of seconds, the firemen were on the way. Close call. If it hadn't been for the fire department's speed, we'd have lost the barn. I'll never forget what the fire chief said when I thanked him. It takes a whale of a lot to be prepared for fire and to fight it. But the best time to fight a fire is long before it started. That's the time for vigilance, inspection, and the program of prevention. That means safety and security to every farmer.
All right, this last film is Fire Hose Handling and Care, and it's made for firemen on how to handle the fire hose so that it doesn't get leaks, doesn't get tears, and is kept safe because basically, you're basically wrapping it up, putting it on a fire truck, taking it somewhere else, hooking it up, so this is back and forth of dragging this thing. And so how can you maximize? Because fire hoses were pretty expensive and a lot of firehouses were on limited budget. So this is not only about the safety, but also about protecting the investment in the equipment. Enjoy.
This is a war of fire, as well as a war of guns. And thousands of loyal Americans who have enlisted for the duration as auxiliary firemen are making a vital contribution to the civilian defense program. It is hoped this picture may be helpful in emphasizing some of the fundamentals of hose handling. Fire hose is the connecting link between the water supply and the fire. If, through neglect and lack of care, the hose fails when it is most needed, an unnecessary loss of life and property may result. So it is most essential to have the hose in perfect condition at all times. The most commonly used type of fire hose consists of a rubber liner protected by 2 cotton jackets. The usual sizes being 2.5 and 1.5 inch, although 3-inch hose is also used. Since hose is one of the most important tools of firefighting and at the same time is easily damaged, it requires special care. New hose should be unpacked on arrival and examined for injury in shipment or defects in manufacture. Good hose will last a long time if given proper care. In storage at the fire station, it should be kept in a cool, dry place so ample circulation of air will prevent mildew. Protection from heat or direct sunlight will preserve the rubber lining. The proper use of hose at a fire will guarantee its performance and lengthen its life. If hose is dragged unnecessarily over pavement or bent around sharp corners, the fabric will break down. When hoisting hose on roofs and into windows, wear on the jacket can be prevented by the use of hose rollers. Dragging or dropping couplings on the ground may batter the threads and dent the swivels so they cannot be connected. And hose with damaged couplings may be worthless at a fire. Damage to the hose caused by street traffic can be avoided by the use of bridges. Laying hose lines in the gutter might expose them to the acids and oily waste that collect there. So it is better to place them away from the curb, yet close enough to allow apparatus to approach the fire without danger of running over them. After hose has been in use, dirt is removed by brushing, scrubbing, and washing. Couplings need no lubrication, But if the swivel does not turn freely because of dirt or grit, it is easily cleaned by spinning it in soapy water. Hose that is allowed to dry by laying it out in the sun on hot pavement will rot and may fail when in use at a fire. So proper drying is always done either in a tower or on an inclined rack that is shielded from the sun. A careful record is kept of each length, giving the make, date of purchase, and any repairs needed. In order to keep a check on the condition of the hose, pressure testing of each length is done annually. After the first year of service, hose is tested at least 50 pounds higher than normal pressure used. Data obtained from these tests is, of course, added to the record. Any faulty lengths are repaired by cutting out defective places and recoupling, or the entire length is discarded. The coupling of a hose is a one-man job, the operator standing with feet spread apart but not straddling the hose. The female end is brought over the thigh and the swivel worked with one hand while the male end is held in the other. By using this method, the operator is pushed clear of the hose if it should be jerked from his grasp. Attaching the nozzle is accomplished by stepping on the hose close to the male coupling so that it is tilted upward. Grasp the nozzle with one hand and assist in guiding and turning with the other until the threads are fully engaged. Then tighten the connections before removing the foot. Nozzles should be opened and closed slowly to reduce the effects of water hammer due to sudden changes in pressure. The double male coupling is used wherever it is necessary to join two female ends together. If a situation arises where two male ends must be connected, the double female coupling, consisting of two swivels connected by a short collar, is used. The Y is a 2.5-inch waterway connection with one female swivel that may be connected on a hydrant and two male connections on the other end. With the Y, it is also possible to lay one long hose line to a point near the fire and then, by placing the Y in the line, to have two smaller lines from this point to the fire. The Siamese connection is the reverse of the Y and has two female swivel connections on one end and one male connection on the other. It is used when a strong, heavy stream is needed by directing the combined flow of water from two lines into one line provided with a larger tip. Reducers or adapters consist of one female threaded end, which can be screwed on 2.5-inch hose, and a male threaded end to which a 1.5-inch hose can be attached. Use of a hose clamp often saves valuable time in removing damaged sections or in attaching various connections to a charged line, since it eliminates the need for shutting off the line at the hydrant and recharging again. The basic principle of hose loading is to place the hose in the bed so it will pay out smoothly and without kinking. The common body loads are the horseshoe or U load and the accordion load. The two most commonly used top loads are the donut roll and the less frequently used skid load, which permit quick removal of extra hose. The horseshoe load is started with a coupling in the right front corner of the bed and the hose laid along the outer edges. The layer finishes in the center, from which the line is carried diagonally over the bends to the left front corner, where a left-hand bend starts the second layer. On finishing the second layer, the diagonal will lead to the right front corner from which the third layer will begin. Thus, each layer starts at alternate corners and sharp bends are avoided. The accordion load is started in the same manner with the coupling in the right front corner, and the hose is simply folded back and forth lengthwise across the bed. When completing the layer at the side of the bed, the last length is raised from front to rear until at the rear it is on top of the first layer. Because the coupling is apt to jam if it has to turn around in paying out, a reverse bend is used so the coupling will pay out freely. While the accordion load is simple to lay, all bends are sharp ones and tend to cramp the rubber lining of the hose. To make the donut roll, place a section of hose flat on the ground and carry the male end to about 4 feet from the swivel end. One man rolls the loop end while another guides the slack to make the job of rolling easier. Donut rolls are handy as special deck loads for dropping off at hydrants. And they also make convenient spare sections that can be easily carried by one man. The skid load is made with about 125 feet of hose and placed on top of the regular load so that it may be removed immediately at the point of the fire. Hose loaded on apparatus is unloaded monthly if it has not been used and reloaded so that bends come in different places. In laying hose from hydrant to fire, the hydrant man makes a loop around the hydrant barrel with the hose, crossing the line on the ground and placing his foot on it to hold it fast as the apparatus pulls away. The first connection is usually made to the hydrant outlet nearest the fire, and another outlet is gated so another line may be connected without shutting down the hydrant. By the time the line is laid, the hydrant man should have his connections made and be ready to turn on the water when the command is given. After the water has been turned on, it is generally the duty of the hydrant man to follow up the line, straightening it, and tightening leaky couplings. Where pumpers are used, the fire to hydrant layout puts the pumper in position to be connected to the hydrant the moment the line is laid. Under this modern practice, the apparatus lays the line from the fire to the hydrant, and the pump is immediately connected up, ready to supply the proper pressure. In laying short lines by hand straightaway, the pipe man carries the hose so the nozzle is over his shoulder. The driver pulls the line from the apparatus, and as each coupling comes off, a man places the hose over his shoulder with the coupling in front and follows the man ahead. When the pipe man reaches the fire, exactly the amount of hose needed has been laid from the apparatus. When necessary for 1 or 2 men to lay a long line of hose alone, remove 100 feet and lay it straight away from the apparatus. Then return 50 feet, pick up the hose at the coupling, and advance this section to the head of the line. The second maneuver is repeated until sufficient hose is laid in loops to reach the point of operation. This advancement procedure is followed 100 feet at a time until the head of the line is thus extended to the objective. Since dragging hose by brute strength is cumbersome work, the shoulder carry is popular. One man can carry a section of hose easily this way. To assemble the shoulder load, lay a length of hose in a straight line and then fold over so both ends meet. These ends are then brought back to the first fold and the operation repeated until the load is of convenient size to sling over the shoulder. To form a shoulder load from a section of a continuous length, pick it up just back of a coupling and place the line over the shoulder with the coupling in front. Stepping forward, more hose is picked up and a loop formed front and back. Another such double loop completes a load of about 35 feet of hose. Many a fireman takes an unnecessary licking trying to lay a hose up a stairway. Here again, the shoulder carry saves time and strength. The hosmen, spaced 12 to 15 feet apart, load sections of hose on their right shoulders and feed the line off as they proceed up the stairway. The last man in the line unloads first, and by the time the nozzle man is unloading, the other men will have had time to walk the line to the point of operation without getting winded. When necessary to raise hose where a ladder is not easily available, rope secured to the hose a few feet from the nozzle may be used. Or a pike pole is a handy hoisting tool where successive elevations are involved. The divided hose body provides great flexibility of operations since it permits various evolutions using both sides of the body. A single line may be laid either to or from the fire, or double lines are possible in either direction. Where it may be convenient to have the pumper near the fire rather than at the hydrant, a divided body can be used for a double line which will provide a better suction supply to the pumper. If an especially long single line is required, it is a simple matter to join the hose from both sides of a divided body. Because hose is the most necessary tool in fighting fire, but may be easily damaged, trained firemen will protect it against mechanical injury by proper handling and by careful cleaning and drying after use. Familiarity with the various appliances makes expert hose handling possible. The competent fireman knows how to handle couplings, nozzles, Siamese and Y connections, and adapters. Careful loading of hose will avoid sharp bends and kinks, so it will pay out smoothly. Popular loads are the horseshoe, the accordion, the donut roll, and the skid load. The capable fireman is familiar with both hydrant-to-fire and fire-to-hydrant hose layouts, and he also knows how to lay short lines by hand straightaway. Knowledge of how to make the shoulder carry and when to use it frequently saves time and needed energy. And familiarity with the features of the divided hose body may mean the difference between success and failure in fighting a fire. Just as it is the soldier's first responsibility to care for and know how to handle his rifle, so does the well-trained fireman take proper care of hose and know how to use it.
Well, I mean, of course I had to show that film. You show films about fire. You guys all know that. Again, I love it. The 70s, magical time. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We'll be back again tomorrow. If you like what you saw, you can buy us some coffee at buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks. You can also go to avgeeks.com and see other things that we have put online, and you can buy DVDs there as well. You can also hit the thumbs up, the subscribe, the like, all that stuff. Those are ways to help us as well. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we will see you again tomorrow. Take care.